Hi everyone, my name is Julia Yukuhiro, and today we're going to talk about diversity in young adult fiction books. Yes, and why does this topic matter so much? Well, scholars such as Nancy Larrick have long talked about the lack of representation of black kids in children's books, and also another scholar, Melanie Bold, talked about the lack of black authors themselves. So, yes, today we're going to talk about two incredible books, Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, an American author, and Ponciá Vicêncio by Conceição Evaristo, a Brazilian author. Alright, so let's talk about the author Jason Reynolds. He was born in Washington, D.C., in the US, which is going to be a very important information for us. His major themes include violence, people of color, and also masculinity, as it is evident in Long Way Down, his verse novel. And he found himself through rap to start writing poetry, and he graduated with a bachelor's in English in the University of Maryland. So let's talk about Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, this book that I'm holding right here. So basically, the protagonist, Will Holloman, who is a black kid, seeks revenge after his brother Sean gets killed by Riggs in a gun incident. And basically, he goes on an elevator and he goes down. And each stop of the way, he actually finds a ghost of his past. So people that he knew and that are dead now. So, for example, Danny, a girl he used to like, Uncle Mark, his dad, and in the last step he finds his dead brother Sean. So basically the ending is ambiguous whether or not he carried forward his plan or if he didn't kill Riggs and didn't follow the rules. So this right here is an illustrated version in the slides of the book. Long Way Down is written by an American author in American settings, and it's about American characters, which exemplifies how most of young adult fiction is actually centered in North America. But you can ask me, what about diverse young adult fiction in other countries? And I'll reply to you, there's actually diverse young adult fiction everywhere, across the globe, across histories, cultures, and languages. And there's something that we're going to explore today shortly with the novel Ponciá Vicêncio by Conceição Evaristo, a renowned Black author. And what it basically does is that diverse young adult fiction basically enriches our literature and also is a way to bring visibility to minorities. But we cannot talk about Brazilian novel without talking about Brazilian history. So basically, in the 1500s, Pedro Álvares Cabral actually came to Brazil and basically started exploring our natural resources such as pau-brasil with indigenous labor. Basically, Brazil became an exploration colony to meet the demands of Portugal, the colonizer. So around the 16th to 17th century, there was an investment on sugar mill plantations, so sugarcane plantations, and then there was an increase in the slavery trade from Africa to Brazil. And basically, yeah, around like 5.5 million people were taken forcibly only to Brazil during the slavery trade period. And even after the sugarcane industry and economy collapsed, in the late 17th century, there was an explosion of the gold mine economy because they found gold in the state of Minas Gerais. So a lot of slaves were also brought into the country because of that. It's a long story, but basically, in 1888, there was the actual abolition of slavery, and it was mostly due to England's pressure for Brazil to abolish slavery and also some internal revolts, such as Revolta dos Malês. It's very important to reinforce that no measurements were actually taken to reintegrate Black people into Brazilian society, and actually was the opposite because they suffered a lot of racism and discrimination. They weren't given no land, no opportunities, and also, yeah, they lacked support from the government. So, after no measurements by the Brazilian government were taken to reintegrate Black people into Brazilian society, there was actually the formation of slums because they had no opportunities to live in the city and they weren't really welcome in the city because of discrimination and racism. So, they basically formed slums in the peripheric areas of the city. Slums are informal settlements and they have very poor living conditions, a lack of sanitation, lack of basic human services like education and healthcare, which led to a cycle of poverty, intergenerational trauma within the Black communities in the slums, marginalization, discrimination against them, and inequality. Um, Yes, across the country, which is a topic that Conceição Evaristo is going to discuss in Ponciá, Vicêncio. Alright, so let's talk about the renowned Black author Conceição Evaristo. She was born in Minas Gerais state in Brazil, and her major themes in her books include female Black protagonism and also racial discrimination, especially within Black communities, and it's something that she discusses in Ponciá Vicêncio about the legacies of slavery in Brazil. She also has a PhD in comparative literature, and she says, and I quote, the fact that I'm a writer and I have a doctorate does not make me immune to the Brazilian racism, which basically describes how Brazilian society is still very racist today. So let's talk about the young adult fiction novel by Conceição Evaristo, Ponciá Vicêncio. Basically, the book narrates Ponciá Vicêncio's, a Black woman's journey from childhood to adulthood. And basically, she leaves the countryside, her hometown, where her ancestors were enslaved, to live in the city, in the slums, in the favelas. And she lives in very poor conditions there and suffers from domestic violence from her husband and a lot of discrimination in the city because of her condition, because of her skin color. So, yes, and I quote the book in page 84 in English translation. She was a slave too. She was a slave of a life condition that repeated itself, slave of despair, slave of the lack of hope. And it reflects Brazilian society today for sure. And basically, the plot of the story is that she leaves her hometown and then she wants to find her family again, and she, at the end, reunites with her family. And the book basically discusses a lot about the slavery trade and the legacies of and consequences of the slavery trade to Black communities in the country. We also have to talk about the differences between Longue Down and Ponciá Vicêncio. And you ask me, why does it matter so much? And I'll reply to you that both characters in Ponciá Vicêncio and Longue Down are different. They have different perspectives, different intersectionalities, different points of view, and those differences actually enrich our young adult fiction literature. Longue Down is written in verse, it's in first person, and is set in the US, which discusses the American context with, for example, gun violence. Also, it's written in English language and offers a male perspective through Will Holloman. On the other hand, Ponciá Vicêncio is written in prose, is in third person, is set in the Brazil, so it discusses discrimination and racism against Black people, and is written in Portuguese and offers a female perspective of the events. Alright, so let's talk about the similarities between Longue Down and Ponciá Vicêncio. Both of the books feature the contact with the dead. In Longue Down, Sean, the last page of the book, 312, asks Will if he's coming with him out of the elevator, and the ending is pretty much ambiguous whether he continues with his revenge plan or not. And also, there's the contact with the dead in Ponciá Vicêncio through a clay doll that Ponciá Vicêncio makes, and basically she can contact her dead grandpa, Vô Vicêncio. In both books, there's a presence of the theme of loss and grief, especially in Ponciá Vicêncio because she loses her father and also her grandpa throughout the book. And in Longue Down, Will loses his brother Sean. Both books offer a Black community perspective and point of view, and they are own voices books. So basically, both authors are Black and they're writing about Black characters. And both authors and books have similar goals. They both want to impact youth and bring representativity and visibility to people of color. Jason Reynolds, for example, wants to impact youth, and he says that his books are love letters to Black kids and like an acknowledgement of their existence so they can find themselves in his books and also feel represented. Conceição Evaristo, just like Jason Reynolds, wants to impact youth and bring visibility to Black communities. She claims that her books are for adolescents and people in formation years, in educational years, to understand themselves, to understand their conditions and their histories. So basically, what both authors are trying to do is to bring visibility to those communities and help them to find their mirrors. The point is that representation matters. And it's not only me saying that. An American scholar, Rudine Bishop, talks about how if kids don't find themselves through the books portrayed in the books, they learn an important lesson that they are devalued in that society. So basically, our books, children's books, and also young adult fiction have to match this diversity. Another scholar, Junior from Brazil, has a similar idea that the student material should include the diversity of African cultures and also our culture, the African Brazilian culture. Alright, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have any questions or comments, please comment down below. And all the references that we used today are listed here in the slides and also in the description. So thank you so much, and bye-bye!